All right, our next speaker is Sabine Messner, and she is the founder and creator of soulpurposebranding.com. She is our incredible platinum sponsor, which allows us to bring added benefits and value to you at the event, like our networking party. And sponsors also help reduce the ticket price, which is sort of like theaters, right? You know, when you make donations to the theater, it reduces the ticket price. So it's also a great opportunity, if you're thinking about being a sponsor, it's a great opportunity to be seen and to connect with your target audience. Sabine is going to be sharing with you today what it means to have a brand that is on purpose, a brand that comes from your soul. And I am not going to say too much more because she shares her beautiful story with you in her presentation. However, I would like to ask you to please get on your feet and welcome Sabine Messner.
Wow, are we in alignment? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I wanted to first thank you all for receiving me because I really feel so amazingly received. And I want to thank Beth and Pamela for giving me this opportunity to be received by you today. See, I was in your shoes just 12 months ago at Gifted 2012 when the universe tapped me on my shoulder and said, "It's time, Sabine, it's time." And I said, "Yes, I know." And they said, "And this is your stage. This is your stage. Go ahead and claim it." And this is exactly what I am doing today, not just on my behalf, but on your behalf. And I want to thank Beth and Pamela because they recognize that I'm not just going to come here and do a talk, that there's something greater that we are going to birth through here today for all of us, so that we can take our soul's essence and our soul's purpose and be in business with our truth in integrity and impeccability. And this is, my dear beloved soulmates, what I take a stand for. And in fact, for that, I need to take my shoes off because it's a little hard to take a stand in high heels, though that may be the job of some people, but not mine. I need to be more grounded. So I am here to take a stand for, and you can see it if we, where's my clicker actually? Is this my clicker? And am I doing this? Yeah. I am here because I have called on the goddess Athena to take a stand with me, to take a stand for you, for your soul, and for your purpose. I take a stand for something so small, so precious, so sacred, which is the seed of greatness, human potential in all of you, that more often and tragically than not gets lost in translation, because we have all come online in terms of the double meaning. We're coming here with the yearning to be living and expressing our soul's essence and our soul's purpose, and oftentimes we find ourselves getting derailed and off track. And this is why I am, hang on, let me figure this out. Am I going this way? Yes. I take a stand for your soul, your purpose, and your business. And in fact, I have been supported to come here today, not just by Beth and Pamela, but by also 10 of my clients that have flown in from all over the United States to support me because they know that I take a stand for something greater than just myself or my business. And they know that I stand for this. I want you to not die with your dream still inside of you. And when you hear my story, you will understand more why I am so passionate about that. So for us to basically really take the seed of greatness and to translate that in congruency into our business, we need to be able to shatter some illusions. So who is ready here to shatter some illusions? Yes, excellent. And simulcast people, I need your participation in this one. So the way we're going to pop some collective illusions is just like this. Just like this. But they are big illusions. Can you do that sound? They're big. They're big illusions, but they're super easy to pop. So we're going to pop some illusions that we have all bought into. So illusion number one. Illusion number one is we shrink wrap ourselves. So there's this peculiar thing going on where we all feel this yearning to come online. You know, why do we feel the yearning to come online? Because on a soul level, we know that this is our time, that we have a sacred appointment, that we need to create sacred links with other soulmates, right? We need to be able to find our soul alliance so that we can create the rainbow bridge and create the new future, create the new world, that we're here, really. And many of us have given up careers and marriages, private practices. We have put a lot on the line. Emotionally, we've put a lot on the line. Spiritually, we're going out to the edge. Financially, we are all showing up, and then what ends up happening is that we are actually, instead of growing more and revealing more of who we are, we're actually shrinking down. We're shrinking down, and we're trying to fit into this box. And then we're not just like in the box, we're shrink wrapping the box. And then we're sort of like out on this, you know, delivery path or launch pad. Okay, here, I'm ready for consumption. I'm ready for delivery. You know, buy me now. And this is exactly what happens to us. And we're even taught that this is how you're supposed to do it. We're multidimensional beings, and we're taught to narrow it down. And tragically, instead of niching our products and programs and services, we're niching ourselves. Does that sound familiar? So many of us are shrink-wrapped, perfectly packaged boxes that all look and sound alike. Let's pop that one. If you're ready for yourself and for the collective of this expert industry, let's pop it. And simulcast South Africa, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you are in the world. Illusion number two. Once we're perfectly shrink-wrapped and in these boxes, guess what happens? We have no access anymore to our higher wisdom because we're perfectly shrink-wrapped. It's complete. We're packaged. We're products on the launch pad to make a big difference in the world. So we have actually, by necessity, no other choice but to carbon copy. Do you understand? Because you're perfectly shrink-wrapped, so you must carbon copies. Now, I have two responses to this one. One, I find it highly entertaining because it's fascinating to watch the different training camps and to see like hundreds of little mini-me's come out that have essentially the copy, the same marketing copy, the same business model, I mean, down to the wardrobe and the shoes. It's all cookie cutter. In fact, we even want the cookie cutter. Just give me the how-to formula. Just give me the how-to formula. We even say that. We ask for that. We pay big money for how-to formulas to make a big difference as imitation crab meat. If you are ready for yourself to pop this one, you don't have to. If you're happy making lots of money being imitation crab meat, if that works for you, then don't take me up on this invitation. But if it doesn't work for you, let's pop that one, okay? Simulcast people? Wonderful. Now that we're, you know, popped them, but let's go with the illusion packaging here. So we're perfectly shrink-wrapped. We are imitation crab meat. So consequently, because we cannot access higher wisdom, we cannot co-create with the universe. We cannot actually experience true purpose wealth, true purpose abundance, because we are still counting abundance by counting dollar bills. So consequently, we have no other choice as shrink-wrapped, imitation crab meat. The only way how we can be successful is on the heels and the backs of others. This is a tough one. This is a tough one because this happens so unconsciously and we don't mean to. We really, really, really don't mean to. And it makes us not feel good, but we all bought into the illusion. And why is that? It is because somewhere deep down in our collective, we have done a lot of healing around making money, lots of money. Many of us have made more money than we could ever even imagine. So there's a lot of good things happening. And yet at the same time, when it comes to really speaking and acting on our truth, we still do not trust that we will be getting paid if we really go out there on a limb and really are speaking the truth, which is why we're still packaging and putting everything into that nice little box. So we still have, on a collective level, a lot to learn about what abundance means. There could be new ways of collaboration. There could be new ways of partnership, new ways of experience, wealth where it's just not by just the up-leveling concept. So if you for yourself and for the ones that you want to touch in your life, if you're ready, let's pop this one too. Wow, very good. Could you feel that? And if you run into more illusions along the way. So now that we have popped these illusions and created space for new, let's take a look what is at stake if we're buying into the illusion and what's possible for us, okay? Let's take a look at what's possible for us. Raise your hand. Who here in this room does not know Susan Boyle? One person. Okay, well, the room pretty much knows who Susan Boyle is. Do you guys remember when she stepped on stage, unemployed, 47 years old, with eyebrows, as bushy as trees? The judges, they were like, whoa, she is a lunatic. What's she doing on our stage? They did not like her. They resented her. Everybody was preparing in a very cynical, in a very disgrading way for her to actually fail on the national television stage, on the public stage. Do you recall that video? They laughed. They laughed. And she said, well, what's wrong? I'm 47, and I'm from this little village in Scotland. What's wrong with that? I want to sing a song. And then she opened up her mouth and she sang the song, I Dreamed a Dream. And within split seconds, their jaws dropped. The woman judge, had tears coming down. And the audience was like, wow. And then they apologized to her. They said, this was a big lesson learned. We are so sorry. We have to apologize. It was a privilege to witness this. It was a privilege to witness this. But what Susan Boyle has dared to do, and what we need to do at this time in the expert industry, is this. Go to the edge of being ridiculed, called a lunatic, called a fool, and sing our greatest song. Not for ourselves, but because we are humans. For the potential of humanity, you sing that song as loudly and as boldly as you can. For you will be ever and ever heard, going forwards in time and backwards in the future. Who says yes to that? But you have to be willing. You have to be willing to do this. If I have one business hero, it's not a mentor that is in the industry. It is this woman. And I have a picture of her. Because this, to me, is impeccability, this is courage, and this is truly, truly, truly living up to your soul's potential. Did she make a lot of money? more than she probably can ever use. Is she authentic? Absolutely, you know. She has not put herself on a pedestal, pretended that she is someone else other than her best self. Isn't that liberating? To just be the best that you can then be and bring it out in the world and be honored and celebrated and loved for that. Loved for that. This is the new paradigm. And this, my dear friends, is what I'm all about. As far as I'm concerned, I just see Susan Boyle here, on this table, on this table, on this table. You're all Susan Boyle. Why shrink wrap yourself and put yourself in the box? Enough of that. So now that you know what I'm all about and what I care the most, is it's a time for me to tell you more about who I am. By the way, I don't have the timer here.
Right there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, dear. So it's basically I have to pay attention to the bottom number?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. By the way, this is the first time that I'm doing this. Top one?
Top one counts down. Bottom's how long you've been going.
Okay, got it. Hey, we're learning as we go. So I grew up in the Black Forest of Germany. For those of you who may not know who that is, that's basically in the southern-western corner of Germany at the border to Switzerland and France. And I had the most amazing, enchanted childhood because I grew up in a little village that was 1,250 years old. And later on, when I studied with the Native Americans of the South Americas and the North America, I was like, wait a minute, this is all stuff that we do. It was so pagan, Alemannic, and Celtic, and it's just part of our culture there. And so nature, magic, all of this wonderful stuff. My dad was a prolific inventor. He was in fact, I come from a long generation of inventors. My father, my grandfather, and my grandfather, they all had inventions. For example, one of the patents that my father had, he had invented a car engine that ran on 2/3 of water and 1/3 of gasoline in 1972. So I grew up on the farm and in a laboratory. My father decided to go in business with his amazing creations, and they took off like mad, and he was selling those machines, and the harbors all over the Mediterranean, you know, wanted to have his pumps, his high water pressure pumps, and so already, this is me, age 3, we would travel to wherever he needed to deliver his machines, and I would come along, and I saw already most of all the beautiful places in Europe by the time I was a little girl. So life was really, really, truly amazing. And my mom, I should say, she is the most independent, intuitive, empowered woman you'll ever meet, just so down to earth. So they were also together very much in love. I had a wonderful childhood until one day everything was threatened because my father's business partner had embezzled a lot of monies over the course of many years and brought my father's company to the brink of bankruptcy. Now, in the late 70s, bankruptcy back then, where we lived in our small community, was a disaster. It was a complete catastrophe. You would have never recovered from it. It meant the end. And my father was completely and utterly destroyed. I was 13 years old when I came home one day from school for lunch, and the kitchen door was open, and nobody was in the kitchen. And I heard these whimpering, sobbing voices from the laboratory. And I ran down the steps, and I saw my father hanging over one of his creation machines, and my mother hanging over him, and they were both sobbing. And my father looked up, and tears were running down his face, and he said to me, "Look at your father. I'm such a failure, I can't even kill myself." What he had attempted that morning, he had attempted to end his life, to electrocute himself. And he had actually touched the light. Thankfully, this was the only thing that my father ever failed at. Thankfully. What I also learned at 13 is that healing is a beautiful thing. No matter how horrific, things are that can happen to us, and they do, and they will, there's always healing. There was so much light around my father from that moment on, especially Mother Mary, for some reason. He wasn't particularly religious, but Mother Mary and angels. So a very beautiful, enchanted healing story began. And my mom, bless her heart, she walked into the bank one day and she set everyone straight. And so we didn't lose everything. We just basically packed our bags and moved on and went for a new beginning. What we didn't know during that time was that a tumor was growing in his right hemisphere, in the center of imagination, if you can imagine. So I was 17 years old. My father took his last breath after a brain surgery. And I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want him to leave. So I would look at his body and I would look for, where can I still be in touch? Where can I still communicate with him? Telepathically, where can I still be in touch? And I was able to communicate with him as he was exiting his body, and then he went to the corner of the room. There was a Jesus cross that was hanging on the wall, and he said, "It's all good, Sabine. It's all good. Don't worry." And since that day, I can see soul energy. I can communicate with souls. And later on, Alberto Villoldo, who was my teacher, through him I learned the death rites. I actually learned to assist the dying and the dying process, to lift the soul body out of our physical body. And what do you know? That's exactly what I was able to track on my own without any metaphysical training or knowledge. I just knew. During that time, I made a very powerful pledge, because the pain and terror that I was feeling and the anger that I was feeling was so excruciating. I did not know how to handle it. I did not know how to cope with it. So the only way of how I could survive that is by declaring that I will live a life in which I can die any day, knowing that I've lived and fulfilled my purpose. And I had no idea how powerful this pledge would have been. I had no idea. Fast forward, oh, those fonts look different. Fast forward 10 years, I am 27, and I'm sitting on a park bench in Manhattan on Washington Square Park. I was a student at the time. My art professor did this trip to New York City. And, by then I had traveled even more, because ironically, when I was a student and had the least amount of money, I saw the most of the world. And I'd been to Africa and Asia and in different places. And that's why I was able to sense that this place, the United States of America, is a very, very different place. It's not just a geographical destination, oh no. It's a state of consciousness. And in that moment, when I sat on, not particularly this park bench, but a park bench right there, I realized why they call it the New World. And I had a human epiphany, an epiphany about human potential in that moment, where I saw thousands and thousands of souls arrive from the old world, because somehow they could feel that this was a place where they can take their dream and realize it, outside of traditions and restrictions and limitations. This is why it was called the land of the brave and free. And they all landed in Ellis Island and then spread out from there all over and went for it. They went for their dream. And in that moment of human potential, epiphany, of really understanding what a majestic opportunity this is, this country that I had a very different image about. This light shaft came down, and I heard this voice inside of my body, in my entire being, and all of my cells, and it said, "Sabine, if you want to live your highest purpose, you must move to the United States." And I'm like, what? Why would I want to do that? And then it also said, and you will meet your soulmate too. End of transmission. Now, this was so profound. This rendered me so much on a level that it took me years to find words for it. Because I was supposed to get married to my first love, Henry, this awesome Berlin artist guy. And this is what was at stake. I had by then managed to get accepted in one of the best art universities in Europe, the Berlin University of Fine Arts, and I studied visual communication. I was on track to become a new media professor at that very university. I was already in a tutor program. It was all plotted out for me. And I would have probably gotten married, we had a child, we would be divorced by now, and this would have been a destiny that would have not been shabby, right? That's not so bad for a little farmer's girl to have made it. I'm still the only one with a college degree, if you can believe it. That's not a bad destiny. And you know what? That was not the highest purpose for my soul, because it was plotted out. I could have just executed that. Fill in the blanks. Destiny retract. You know what I had to do? Go back to that. It was a course correction. I was like, okay, am I going to live a really great life, but somehow deep inside me is that suppressed yearning that I wasn't, going to stand up fully for what I've actually pledged? But I pledged it in a very powerful way, so I couldn't really, escape from it. I would have been a very resentful, very talented, yet very resentful professor of fine arts. Aren't you glad I didn't become that? Instead, I decided, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. So America is an invitation. Then let's be the best at what I was already good at. So I finished my bachelor's and my master's in visual communication as the valedictorian. Packed my suitcase, this was the suitcase, and my dream case. And inside the dream case, I had a custom build were slides of my art pieces. And with those two suitcases, I arrived in April of 1904 in San Francisco. 1994 in San Francisco. Thank you, somebody's counting. And so within weeks of arriving there with the suitcase and the dream case, I was introduced to the founders of Wired magazine. And the creative director, Barbara Kaur, looks at 2 or 3 slides and she says to me, "When can you start working?" I said, "Now." She said, "Great. We're going to launch the world's first online magazine. I'd like you to help me with the homepage." And so this is how I became an award-winning web designer and web design pioneer. In fact, 2 years later, in 1996, the German television crew arrived in San Francisco. They did a documentary on the invention of the World Wide Web. And they would come up to me and they said, "How did you get this job?" I said, "Oh, no big deal. I just followed my purpose." There's 2 things that I want to point out for you here that matter to you, When you actually go for a United States H-1B visa, which is a work visa, you must prove that you don't take a job away from any other US citizen. Now, when some of you say, "Well, I'm not going to make money with my true purpose. I need to kind of sell them what they want, give them what they need," because you can't really say that this is really truly it. Well, if you actually were to really do that, guess what? It's a game changer. Everything changes, and there's only one person that can do it exactly that way, and that's you. So that's the one takeaway, that you have to think of your business to create something so original, so innovative, so game-changing that only you can do it. And again, it comes back down to this, right? The other thing that I want to point out here that is relevant for you, when I came in 1994, I didn't speak English. My English was actually It was broken tourist English at best. So here I was working actually with some of the smartest editors and journalists that, the West Coast and even there were, in the East Coast, what have you. And I wouldn't understand every single word they'd say. So to help myself out, I'd listen to what their soul wanted me to hear. And then I translated that into visual images. And then I would come back and I would say, is that what you meant? I said, that's exactly what we wanted. That's exactly what we wanted. So use all of your tools. We are so word-centric in this society. Handbooks and all this word stuff and long copy. You can get your message across so much more faster and effectively when you use visual language and energetic language.